Alright, so today we've got a rear axle leak on a 1999 Toyota Landcruiser. We're going to be ripping out the old seal and installing a new one. First step is to jack up the rear axle. Now go ahead and put a jack stand under the axle tube. I'm only putting one on the side where I have the actual leak, and the reason is because it's going to reduce the amount of gear oil that spills out. And you're going to need to remove your wheel for this job, so go ahead and zip them off. So for this job, you're going to want to get a 7/32 inch vacuum cap. It's going to be used to place over the flared end of your hard brake line. Next, you're going to disconnect the hard brake line from the soft brake line using a 10mm flare nut wrench. And now that you have the hard line disconnected, go ahead and take that 7/32 inch vacuum cap and put it over the tube. The reason you want to do this is because you're trying to prevent air from entering the line. It's going to make your life a lot easier when you go to bleed your brakes at the end of the job. So the other thing you're going to want to get is a silicone plug. I got a kit from Amazon of varying sizes. Just pick one of those up and plug up the soft line in the caliper. And the next thing you're going to want to do is remove the caliper from the brake backing plate. Use a 17mm socket. There's 2 bolts. Now that you have the 2 bolts removed, you can pull off the caliper. If your brake line is old, be careful, because you can easily damage the line. Now that the caliper is removed, you're going to remove the rotor. Depending on the state of your parking brake shoes, you're going to have to potentially loosen them up to get the drum off. And the way you do that is by rotating the rotor so that the hole that my screwdriver is in right now is at the 6 o'clock position. And then you take your screwdriver and go from top to bottom on the star adjuster that's inside. Now that the parking brake shoes have been backed off sufficiently, you should be able to pull your rotor off. Next, you're going to want to grab a pair of vice grips to remove these 2 return springs. And I should mention that the other end of the spring hooks into the brake shoe. So you can just unhook it there and set it aside. Next, you want to remove the brake shoe hold down springs. I used some reverse pliers to rotate that top cup so that I could disconnect it. After removing the shoe hold down springs, you're left with a pin that goes through the backing plate. Just fish it throughout the back and set it aside. Next, you want to remove the tension return spring, which pulls the brake shoes back away from the drum when you release the parking brake. I chose to just leave it hooked onto the brake shoe. It's not a big deal, it'll reinstall just fine. And just like you did on the other side for the other brake shoe, you want to use your reverse pliers or whatever tool you want to use and remove that hold down spring stack up. Now you're going to want to remove the parking brake lever from the wire. I just used a pair of pliers. You kind of got to clamp down on the wire and push it through the lever and pop it out. Now you're ready to pull the axle shaft. So grab your 17mm socket and remove the 4 nuts. Next, you want to disconnect the bell crank from the cable. So remove the cotter pin. And now you can remove the pin. I think it would have helped to put some PB Blaster on it. but I got it out just fine. When I went to reinstall it later, I did use PB Blaster. Alright, now that it's disconnected, you can go ahead and pull on the whole assembly. And as you're removing it, be careful, support the axle shaft so that the free end doesn't get damaged. So you can see that some gear oil got past the seal, which you can see there at the bottom on the inside of the axle tube housing. I recommend to replace the O-ring here on the outside diameter, mostly because it prevents water ingress from the outside in. Go ahead and clean up the bore of the axle tube so that you can install a new one. Next, you're going to want to remove your ABS sensor that goes inside of the axle housing. This is a 10mm socket. Next, you want to pry off the ABS sensor, but be careful because it is made of plastic. You don't want to risk cracking it. So I decided to improvise and I grabbed a pair of channel lock pliers. Just be careful not to damage the inside of the bore. I kind of just pinched down on the seal on the inner diameter of it, twisted and yanked it out. Now let's grab our new O-ring and install it. I don't know that this part is absolutely critical, but I decided to throw some grease on the O-ring. Now I wanted to get a little extra, so I decided to design and 3D print a seal driver. Now you want to install that inner axle seal. If you don't have a 3D printed part like this, you can use a normal seal driver. Just make sure that the outside diameter of the seal driver matches the outside diameter of the actual seal. And if you want a 3D printed seal driver and you have a 3D printer, just contact me and I'll send you the 3D model. So I designed a little slot inside the middle of the seal driver. So I used a extension and pounded the seal in until the tone of the sound changed, which is how I knew it was all the way in. Now that the seal is successfully installed, go ahead and grab your axle and reinstall very carefully. Again, try not to hit the bore surface and guide the shaft in carefully until it locks into the gears in your diff. Now just put everything back together. Now grab your torque wrench with a 17mm socket and torque up the flange nuts to 90 foot-pounds. Now it's time to reinstall the ABS sensor using a 10mm socket. Just be careful not to over tighten this bolt because the ABS sensor is made of plastic. And now it's time to put together the brake shoe assembly components. Now this part's a little tricky. Grab your channel lock pliers and you just want to pull back on the outer sheath of the cable and then insert the lever. And the rest of it's pretty straightforward, so just follow along and you'll have it done. I went ahead and used some caliper grease on the areas where the brake shoe slides so that I avoided any noise. sure to adjust your parking brake shoes. I didn't do it in this video, but there are plenty of videos on how to do that. And make sure you bleed your brakes because you introduced some air into the system when you disconnected the hard line.